So here is the third passage of the mock for us. Now, what does this passage talk about? There are 4 paragraphs here. So this is your beginning of the first paragraph, which carries on to the next slide. Now this paragraph essentially says that contrary to earlier beliefs, there is a realization in certain circles that all human beings are not the same, and there are quite a few differences. Then second paragraph, which again runs into the next slide, essentially says that even this realization has not really gone on to change the ground reality. Along with that, it goes on to cite some data. Then third paragraph talks about the reason behind that skewed data. And finally, the fourth paragraph tells us that, hey, the situation is in fact changing. There are things that are being done to change it. So let's dive into our questions. Question number 10, which of the following best captures the key theme of the passage? So if I look at all of these options, A, the limitations of studying human behavior through a weird centric lens and the need for global research collaboration for cultural diversity and validity in psychology. That's by and large right. I think it just misses out on a bit of the last paragraph, but everything else is there. Let's have a look at B, the impact of cultural experiences on human biology and the necessity of studying a diverse range of population to obtain valid scientific findings in psychology. This forgets mentioning this weird centric lens, which is a very important point in the passage. That's where the discussion actually starts. That is what we want to change. So without that, the option would definitely remain incomplete. So we can rule out B. A is definitely better than B. How about C? The weird homogeneity in psychological research, the role of demographics, and the importance of fostering inclusivity in psychology. I think the first 2 points are points that I do agree with, but then the third point talks about fostering inclusivity. Now, what is inclusivity? Inclusivity is where you give everybody, give somebody from every, say, caste, race, religion, ethnicity, a representation. Now, the passage here does not say that there were people who were excluded on the basis of these things. It just says that a major chunk of the sample and studies occurred in a particular geographical region. And while coming up with that sample, the passage does not say that they deliberately omitted people who belonged to certain race or ethnicity or caste or creed. It is just that the very act of picking up people from a narrow area will prevent you in being heterogeneous enough. So it's not about fostering inclusivity, it is about making the studies valid. So if you look at A, it talks about validity. In fact, even B talks about validity. C suddenly brings in inclusivity, which is not mentioned in the passage and therefore can be eliminated. Let's have a look at D. The paradigm shift in understanding human cognition and behavior, acknowledging cultural variations and emphasizing the need for broader sample representation in weird research. So see, it talks about paradigm shift. There is no paradigm shift. It is being brought about. It hasn't happened yet. So remember the second paragraph that says that this realization has not changed the situation on grounds much, and the fourth one that says that okay, things are being done. So there is no paradigm shift as such, and therefore D can also be termed as a misrepresentation and can be eliminated, and that's why the best answer choice for us for question number 10 is going to be option A. Let's dive into question number 11. So the author has written the first paragraph in order to. So let me show you the first paragraph. Here it is. The first paragraph talks about a realization. And that realization tells us that there was an assumption earlier that human beings share fundamental cognitions, behaviors, biologies, and emotions. So if you've studied one area, humans of one area, you've studied them all. And then it goes on to give us an example to support that point that see, human beings are indeed different. So let us look at these options and then check. A. To debunk the assumption of universal human characteristics and highlight the influence of cultural experiences on biological processes, challenging the homogeneity of psychological research. So I think a major chunk of this answer choice is right. The only issue is with this part, highlight the influence of cultural experiences on biological processes. See, this is something that we can infer from the example that is given, but the example was given to support a larger point that human beings can have differences. So that was not the key thing. It was a supporting element in that paragraph, and the paragraph actually goes ahead and talks about differences in cognitions, behaviors and emotions apart from just biologies. So I would say that A is narrow in that sense. It does not capture the true purpose of the first paragraph well, and that is there is a realization that human beings have differences as opposed to what was thought earlier, differences in terms of cognitions, behavior, biologies, emotions, etc. B, to emphasize the significance of studying diverse populations, previous beliefs. Absolutely. So you notice B gives us these other things as well. So B definitely is better than A. So let's eliminate A. How about C? To present the findings of a study comparing European Moroccan children's pupil dilation. That's narrow. It just somehow makes that example the central point. Moreover, it's just focused on physiological responses and omits the rest of the differences that are being talked about. And thus, C can be eliminated. D, to introduce the revolutionary realization that North American college students do not represent the entirety of human behavior. Signaling a paradigm shift. Once again, remember the last question, there is no paradigm shift that has happened yet in understanding the importance of cultural diversity in psychological reason. In the context of the passage, the paradigm shift has not happened. Moreover, North American college students are just used as a representative term. It is not literally about North American college students. In fact, the rest of the passage does not even talk about specifically college students as part of the sample size. So it was just a term to, in a way, act as a metaphor for the assumption that was being made earlier. And thus, on the basis of these two things, we can eliminate D. So the best option for question number 11 is option B. Let's dive into the next one. Question number 12. Okay, so the author cites the following piece of evidence to build an argument in para 2. Which of the following, if true, would most weaken the author's argument? So what does this question do? The question is saying that, okay, there is an argument presented by the author in para 2, and the core of the argument is that the studies lack heterogeneity. Now, in this particular question, the author limits us to this part of the paragraph to be used as a premise. So the author has used this to say, hey, they lack heterogeneity. Look at this. These 6 APA journals, top 6 APA journals, 68% of the samples are drawn from just the US. So obviously these studies lack heterogeneity. Now, what is the assumption here? If I use this data provided in the question stem along with the conclusion, the assumption here is that these 6 APA journals, what is true for these 6 is true for every other journal as well. Or in other words, these 6 APA journals are representatives of all the journals. Fair enough. Now we are being asked to weaken. Now how do we weaken an argument? We weaken an argument by either proving a premise or an assumption wrong, or by casting doubt on the premise or assumptions, right? So if I look at A, this essentially negates the assumption, so it definitely weakens. How about B? The majority of psychological research is conducted in the US, which has a large population, diverse demographics, thus providing a valid representation of human behavior. Now the author's argument is it lacks heterogeneity. B says, oh no, that does not lack heterogeneity, and therefore we may be tempted to look at B. But then the truth is B weakening the argument? How do we weaken? by questioning the premise or the assumption. If you construct a new argument with a new premise that opposes the conclusion, it can be termed offering a counter argument, but it will not be weakening the argument that is present. So think of an argument as a table, right? So you have a table, every table has a tabletop along with some legs. The tabletop can be termed the conclusion, whereas these legs are your premises and assumptions. So weakening is where you specifically work on this level. If you bring in a new table, you can still prove the other person wrong, but then you will not be weakening this particular argument, right? So B may appear to weaken the argument, but it is not weakening the argument, it is just presenting a counter argument. C, the US is a global leader in psychological research and many international researchers collaborate with American institutions. Once again, does it damage a premise or an assumption involved in the argument? Nope. So not weakening. D, the focus on weird countries in psychological research is justified because they have highly developed educational system and research infra leading to more. Once again, this may say that the author is wrong, but it is not weakening the specific argument that the question asks about, and therefore can also be eliminated. And thus, our answer for question number 12 should be option A. So if B, C and D appeal to you, just revisit the basic concept of weakening. In fact, I have taken you through that. We weaken by questioning the premise or the assumption. Anything else that you do will not be called weakening the argument. Let's dive into the next question. Now the next question is by and large similar to the previous question, because once again we are being offered a data point mentioned by the author. Even this data point goes on to say that hey, their studies lack heterogeneity, and we are once again supposed to weaken it. So let's look at the data point. A recent study, for example, tells us that 3 zip codes account for more than 50% of the research published in top 5 journals of economics. So you're saying here just 3 zip codes, just 3 areas contribute 50% of the research published in the top 5 journals of economics. So once again, one assumption here is those top 5 journals are representative of all the economics journals. Yet another assumption here is that these 3 zip codes lack diversity. Because you are just limiting yourself to 3 areas, you are not looking at people from different backgrounds, culture, race, ethnicity, etc. So let us see. A, the research published in the top 5 might cover a wide range of topics and methodologies. That's irrelevant. So ensuring diverse perspectives, minimizing the issue of homogeneity. No, it is the lack of homogeneity is not the lack of heterogeneity, the lack of heterogeneity is not the heterogeneity of topics. It is the heterogeneity of the people who have experienced different, who may have different, remember, cognition, behaviors, biologies, emotions. So A will be irrelevant. B, the concentration of research in 3 zip codes is a result of these areas having a higher concentration of economists from various countries and backgrounds. Oh, so if this is true, then this definitely weakens because it contradicts the assumption. No, if there are just 3 zip codes, you're not talking to people of different backgrounds. But B says that, hey, these 3 zip codes, the concentration is a result of the fact that these areas happen to have diverse population of people from different countries and backgrounds. So this weakens. C, the research published in top 5 journals of economics from the 3 zip codes might include collaborations with researchers from various geographical. Okay, so this also weakens, questions the same assumption that okay, people are residing here, but then the research is being published in these 3 zip codes, which is pin code in our country, but they are collaborating with others. So therefore this also weakens. D, the concentration of research in 3 zip codes might be due to factors such as networking opportunities rather than but then D says that hey, okay, they may not have consciously done that, but it could have been done. The lack of heterogeneity could be because these 3 zip code had certain advantages. So it's because of these advantages that more papers are being published here. They're not consciously ignoring others. But then D still does not tell us that, hey, these 3 zip codes have a diverse population, and therefore D will not weaken. So now B and C both weaken. That is where this word comes into picture. You know, most weakens. So when I see most, it means that more than one answer choice can do the job, but which one does it better? So between B and C, let me point out one difference. B uses is and D uses might. So is shows a fact. Is says that this is the case. C uses might. Might is that it is a weak possibility. There is a chance that they are collaborating. So they may or may not have collaborated. They could have. They might have. So between a fact and a possibility, which one is a stronger point? Obviously a fact. And therefore, we should go ahead and choose B as our answer for this particular question. Okay. So that takes care of our third passage for us.